Today in our 5-minute guide, what happens after recap and clarification? After recap and clarification, the first and second steps in case interview opening comes a third, lesser-known step, announce case approach. Most candidates will omit this step and fail as a result. If you haven't watched my video on how to open a case interview, please check out the link above. This is a follow-up of that video. Why do you need a clear approach? The best case interviewees, those who get to be consultants, all have one thing in common. They approach the case with a clear and consistent logic that makes sense for that very case only, based on case-specific information. That approach is formed right after they have successfully defined the problem, that is, recap and clarify, and before they do any kind of analysis. Ideally, the approach will describe how the issue tree will be formed, and how each branch in the issue tree, that is, each hypothesis, will be evaluated and tested. Do not confuse this step with structuring, that is, laying out the issue tree. To put this in perspective, if your problem is choosing between two cars, the former will be similar to stating that you will choose on specifications, while the latter is laying out key specifications to compare the two cars. Making this approach step explicit will help both you and the interviewer establish and align a consistent logic with which to approach the problem. What makes a good case approach? A case approach statement answers two questions. What are you trying to find? And how do you find it? For the first question, there are often three common answers. 1. Find root causes. This applies when it looks like the problem is caused by one or few recent, likely high-impact root causes. I like to call this the why case. 2. Find key levers. That is, areas with significant room for improvement. This applies when finding the root causes seems impractical. I like to call this the how case. 3. Choose by criteria. This is for cases when you need to make a decision. I tend to call this the which case. For the second question, the most important piece of information you want to make explicit is the measurement. How you score each hypothesis, potential lever, or criterion. Usually this has to derive from the most urgent interest of the client in the case. For example, if you are trying to maximize profit, then all hypotheses should be assessed through profit potential. Even qualitative factors should be converted into profit potential. How does it work in practice? We'll come back to the Fort Zero case of the previous two videos, those on recap and clarification. Please watch both of them in sequence if you haven't done so. Before you watch the last part, however, try to do it yourself as if you are a real candidate. Please pause the video, think how you would approach this case, and present your approach verbally. Okay, here comes our version.
Thank you for all the information. Considering the sudden drop in growth our client suffered last year, my approach to this case is to first break down the drop in revenue growth into hypotheses reflecting potential root causes and assess each hypothesis by looking at their revenue impact. I suspect that this drop might be largely caused by one singular event that's perhaps responsible for at least 20 percentage points or 66% of the drop, and so a correct diagnosis will go a long way. After that, we can try to tackle the root cause as well as exploring other avenues for growth, for example, affiliate partnerships, or just try to sell more gear and accessories if there is still room for improvement there. We'll go with the levers that provide the highest return on investment in a reasonable time frame. Along the way, I will be asking for additional data to test my hypotheses. Do you agree with this approach, or do you suggest anything else?
Yes, I think you can go with this approach.
Great. I'll come back to your original question on how to structure the issue. Can I have a few moments to gather my thoughts?
Sure. A few final comments. I hope this 3-video series on case opening sheds some more light on how you should optimize the first few minutes of a case interview. I like to make analogies with cooking, so think of this whole case opening process as preparing the ingredients. The more organized and thorough you are at these first steps, the less likely you are to make mistakes and ruin the dish. In cooking, there's a French term, mise en place, which translates to put in place, or more practically, everything in its place to describe the ideal state of preparedness. Get you mise en place in case interviews, and you will make it to consulting. That's the end of today's video. If you like our contents, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on your notifications to receive our latest updated videos. We also have a consulting community. Follow the in the description to connect with cool, like-minded people and experts. At M Consulting Prep, we believe that everyone can make it to consulting. Are you a believer?